Welcome to another edition of Rider Nation Station, presented by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistics partner, investing in Rider Nation Station and St. Mary's, Ohio, as well as Plus One Professionals Real Estate, your local real estate agency, and to our other fine sponsors. Every day for the last 7 decades, St. Marians have come home from work, school, or play and taken time to watch the news, a sporting event, Saturday morning cartoons, music videos, or whatever their favorite show might be on television, usually in their family room. Credit for the first electronic television is given to Philo Farnsworth, whose patent for the image dissector was issued in 1927. This youngster was only 21 when he demonstrated his first working version, but his vision for this revolutionary electronic came to him 6 years before when he was a farm boy looking at the lines in the dirt of his family's fields. Because of successful demonstrations, which included a line and eventually a dollar sign, television became commercially available in the 1930s and quickly became so popular that nearly 3 of 4 households had a television set by 1957. Could have that been the case for St. Mary's, Ohio? Our town was a bustling town with an extremely vibrant downtown, which included many storefronts that sold this new hot-selling product. A product that had some interesting monikers like the Idiot Box, simply the Tube, or even the funny name, the Boob Tube. In 1957, a young man who was trying to manufacture his dream while working at a factory at an age just 1 year older than Philo Farnsworth when he demonstrated his first electronic television, started his long and illustrious career out of a little house in St. Mary's. Rich Fowler is just as synonymous with TVs in St. Mary's as baseball is with Cracker Jacks, as he has positively impacted so many St. Marians with his popular television business. Today we are here to discuss with Rich and Peggy their story as to how they built a major business from the ground up. With the mantra, they're no better than anybody else and just treat everybody nice. I can attest Rich Fowler is one of the nicest human beings you will ever encounter. Rich, Peggy, thanks so much for being our guest on Rider Nation Station.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
So, Rich, it's my understanding that your family moved to the area from Chicago. What do you remember about your early childhood, specifically in childhood, and the move, and what do you remember about your parents?
I really don't remember too much about my life in Chicago, but I do remember when we did come out to Ohio. And I was 7 years old, and Mom was pregnant with my one brother, John, and that was in 1943. And Dad had come out here about 6 months before we did, and he brought some milk trucks out from Chicago for a guy who was working for. And they used to haul milk from Producer's Creamery in Salina, where all the farmers would bring it in there. And then Dad would haul the semi, like down to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so when Dad first came out, he was the only one that his boss sent him out. But then after that, Dad hired his brother, and then he had 3 or 4 other guys that would drive the truck for him also. And but life really grew after that, and I remember my life real well after that.
And your dad really had no family connection to this area?
No, all of our relation on my mom's side, my dad's side, all the relation lived in Chicago. So we had nobody.
Okay. And television became such an integral part of your life. Do you remember having a television when you were a youngster, or when was the first time that you did have a television?
I remember Mom and Dad had a television, and it wasn't a very big screen. It was real small, and but I remember that. And then I remember our first TV too, after me and Peggy got married, that we did have a 21-inch round tube TV, you know, so I remember that.
And black and white, or had color come about at that time?
It was still black and white, our first TV had, and then one Mom and Dad had too. And then you had, even when the color did come out, you had very few color shows, because you didn't have color shows on until prime time at night. And so it was different than what it is today.
And speaking of shows, what do you remember any of the shows that you first liked to watch?
Yeah, we used to like to watch Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Milk Burrow,
Yeah.
Lucy, and Harness, and
Yep.
there was a lot of shows that we did watch and we did enjoy watching it, you know. But I still also remember before the television got real big that we used to listen to the radio, like The Shadow, Dick Tracy, all those shows was on radio, you know. And so TV wasn't popular then like it is today.
And as you settled in here, like I said, you know, you really didn't have any family connections, and you're going to school here, don't really know anybody. And a lot of people identify that they have some teacher who really made a connection with them and helped shape who they were or lead them into a certain direction. Do you remember any teachers that had a positive influence on your life?
Yes, I remember one teacher, her name was Mrs. Haas. When we first moved out here, we moved to Edgewater Park in Salina, but we wasn't there very long because then we moved to North Star. And I went to school there for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I graduated from the 8th grade there. But this teacher, she was wonderful. I mean, I really, really never thought that much about any teacher is what I did her. And we only had about 6 kids, 6 or 7 kids was in our class is all there was. And I do have a picture of her when with our classmates. And I would love to have met her after I got out of school, I really would. She'd have been proud of me.
Yeah,
I think.
most definitely she would have been. And so that was the school in North Star.
Yes.
Which between Salina and Greenville, there's not a whole lot, but there's North Star.
Right.
And I don't think the school exists any longer today off of
No.
127.
Yeah. And after the school closed, I think it was American Legion that was in that
That's
building.
right, yeah.
And I did see a picture of the school. We had looked up afterwards. My sister did and sent me a picture of what the school looked like. But as I say, I had the same teacher in, as I say, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, 8th grade. And I think we was in the same room all 4 of those years, you know. But she was very, very good. I really loved her. I mean, I really respected her. I mean, she, I feel, made me what I've become today. I really do.
Wow, wow. And it's always good to give educators that little bit of plug because they do help shape and mold and direct. So you went from North Star to, I believe, Salina IC for a little bit and then to Salina Senior High, where I saw that you were voted the sophomore class president at Salina Senior High.
Yes.
But then education really took a different turn for you. At about the age of 16, it was no longer within 4 walls of a school. Your education became on the job with starting a job at New Idea in Coldwater?
Yes, I went to New Idea when I was 16, and I started over there, and I couldn't run any machines then because I wasn't 18. You had to be 18 to run a machine, but I did worked in paint and assembly and clean and stuff like this. But then when I turned 18, I went to work in the machine room at New Idea, and I worked there from 52 to 60, and I enjoyed it over there. But I also, in 1957, I started in repairing TVs. Well, I didn't repair them. What I would do is buy used TVs and maybe take 2 or 3 and make one to see if I could get it to work. So we did that when I first started.
Was that more trial and error, or did you have an idea of what you were doing?
I didn't know what I was doing. It was trial and error. I mean, but there was a story to that I'll never forget. When I got this set that I thought might work. So what we did, we lived on Hackney Street there in just a 1-bedroom home. And I told my wife, I said, Peg, I said, I want you to take you and Terry go outside. And I said,
In the car.
in the car.
Sit in the car.
And then I will plug this TV and I'll go outside and plug this TV on. And we had a picture window there, and I looked into the picture window, and sure enough, the TV had come on.
Ah.
And I was proud of myself.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it was a big accomplishment, and that's what really started me to getting into TV repair.
So that was the first of thousands upon thousands of TVs that you've repaired in your lifetime.
Yes, I've seen a lot of TVs.
I'll bet, yes, sir. So before we move forward to 1957 and really getting into the TV business, I want to talk about your your occupations that you had even prior to New Idea. You know, like a lot of youngsters, you mowed some lawns and you shoveled snow. But at the age of 14, I read with intrigue that you were working 6 nights a week setting bowling pins.
Yes, I used to, there was Salina Bowling Alley there, and they were right next to Wendy's, west of Wendy's in Salina.
Yes.
And
Where Fanning Howie probably is
yes,
now.
And Emery Brown did own the bowling alley, and he would, I would set pins, and we also would know who would tip and who didn't tip for the pin setters, and so that's one of the things that we really enjoyed. So every night when we'd go set pins, we'd look to see what lanes we had favorite bowlers that we knew would tip. So we would watch what lanes he was on, and then we would set those lanes. But we would set 2 lanes at a time because the alleys were side by side, and then like I might set like maybe 5 and 6 or maybe 9 and 10, you know. And but you had to be careful. You had to watch what type of pins was setting up there, because you had, if you had like the 1, 2, and then maybe the 6, that thing could come flying back. That 6 pin would come flying back at you, and you could get hurt bad, you know.
So how far back, or are you up, or?
Yeah, we was up, and we was probably, I would say, maybe 5, 6 foot back from the rack of pins. And what we'd do, we'd just go and grab the pins in our fingers and stuff like this and hold, and then we'd put them in the slots that they was missing from on the alley. And then what we'd do, we'd push that rack down there, but you had to make sure you didn't have the wrong pin in the wrong slot.
Yep.
Because there'd been already one on the floor, you know. It didn't clear the alleys like they did today. You know, the rack will come down there and it'll clear the alleys. Then it didn't. And so what pins didn't fall, you had to put the pins in the right slot.
So you're an avid bowler, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But from the automated systems that we have today versus what you were doing as a pin setting, how much more time did it take to set the pins versus what you have today automatically?
I would say probably not much difference.
Oh, really?
Really, I mean, the thing about it is you had to be quick. And that is one of the reasons why I was quick and a lot of the good pin setters was quick. Because the people didn't want to sit there and wait for you to push that rack down so they could throw the second ball, you know. And we would pick the ball up, and then the time the ball got back, we would have them pins set up right away so the guy could bowl a spare ball, or so his next bowler would come up with a strike.
Do you remember your biggest tip?
No, but most of the tips then was 50 cents.
Okay.
Quarter, 50 cents, I mean.
Like for a 2-3 hour work day, work night?
Yes, it was, and some nights then we did have 2 shifts though. See, today you only have 1 shift mostly. And, but back then we had a first shift and a second shift of bowlers. And the bowling alleys was full. I mean, they had bowlers you had 5 men on a bowler team like you did today, but they were full.
Did you bowl as a kid?
A little bit, but not very much.
Okay.
I mean, most of my time then was working, going back home. I mean, you know, they knew what time we got done, so I had to be home in time, you know.
So you'll find Rich Fowler today at bowling. Sometimes it'll be 1 o'clock in the morning. You love to bowl, very successful bowler. And Peg, you bowled?
Not too much then.
Okay.
It was after we were married.
Is when you started bowling?
Yeah.
So
I did once.
2 avid bowlers. Do you think you got your love for bowling from being a pin setter, or just something that evolved later on?
Yes, I think so. And see, I used to bowl with Salina on league over there after we got married and everything like that. And then I quit bowling for about 30 years. And so probably about 15 years ago, I started bowling again up here. And I do bowl Monday night and Thursday nights. Yet I still bowl in 2 leagues. So I enjoy it. And it's
300 bowler yet?
No. Oh, yes, I did. If you bowl a 9-pin, if they set it up for 9-pin and you get a 9 pins, you get a strike. So I had a couple of those. Me and my son Scott both did a couple of those.
All righty. So you had a love for bowling, but you found another love, and she's sitting to the right of you right now as we speak. Talk to us about how you first laid eyes on Peggy, and then you get married, and what role she played in the start of the business.
Okay. When I met Peggy, my dad worked at Goodyear.
Okay.
And something happened to his car or something, I don't know what, but I had to go pick Dad up when he worked 3 to 11. So I got to St. Mary's about 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't have much gas. So I thought, well, I'll go to Goodyear parking lot and wait till Dad gets off at 11. But I was driving down Hackney Street, that's right close to Goodyear, and Peggy was sitting out on the porch. And I knew Peggy before. I seen her at dances. We used to go to dances like on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and I danced with her and everything a lot. And she was sitting out on the porch. So I stopped and talked to her, and we talked till about 11 o'clock, and I was on time, though, to pick Dad up. And so I was going with another girl. In fact, I was engaged to her. So I went over the next day, and I broke up with her. And I went back, and next time I seen Peggy, I asked her to go out with us. So we started dating. We used to go to the dances all the time and everything, you know. So it's been a good marriage, and she knows I love her, yeah.
It was all meant to be.
Yes.
Excellent. So you get married, and what year?
I got married in 1955 on my mom's birthday. Started going with her in April. Well, we decided we was going to get married, but we wanted to get married on my mother's birthday. Mom's birthday was October the 22nd. So we decided, we set a date for October 22nd. We got married on my mom's birthday. And Mom always told Peg, she said she was the best birthday gift she ever had. And she loved Peggy. And she was really, really good.
She was just like my mom, too. I mean,
Yes.
she was as good to me as my mom, even.
And real quick, Peg, what was your maiden name?
Marble.
Marble. And your parents' names?
My mom and my real dad divorced
Okay.
when I was, I think, a baby. And Mom remarried.
Okay.
So, Marble used to be my last name with him.
Okay.
And then my other one was Basil Fowler. That was my stepdad.
Okay.
But they was real good to me, too.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I didn't get hurt by nobody or anything, so I had a good life. We was living out in, in a new house my stepdad and his brothers helped to build out there in the new addition, back behind Knotty Pine, that new addition in there. And so they built that for us. And, well, they built the one we're in now, really, didn't they?
Well, he built 2 of them.
Yeah.
And one of them was 825 Hackney. And then when they lived in that, then they built another one on 902 Hackney. And so when we got married, when I started going with her, she was 825 Hackney. And then they moved down to 902. And after we got married, then we rented a house right across the street from her mom and dad.
Okay.
And that's the first house we lived in there.
Stepdad.
Yeah.
And that's where you first started tinkering with the television?
That is where I first started tinkering
on
with
Hackney.
television. On Hackney.
And then that was just a 1-bedroom house, wasn't very big.
Yes.
And then so you moved to the next house, which was on Beach Street?
Yes, that was 216 South Beach Street, and we had a basement there. And I thought, well, this will let me work on TVs in the basement. But after we bought it and everything, if you got a lot of rains, the basement, the water would come up through the drain. So then I'd have to pick everything up, you know. So that's what made, we lived there probably for about 4 or 5 years. And my Terry and Elaine was both born on Beach Street. But then I moved over to 215 South Vine Street, which the people that lived there before was McNamee. They had a dry cleaning business, and they lived upstairs. Well, then when I bought the building, they moved next door. So then me and Peg and Terry and Elaine moved upstairs, and I did the TV repair downstairs.
And so you're doing repairs at that time. Were you selling any new TVs, or were they just the ones that you had repaired?
At first, I was just repairing them, but soon afterwards, I had a real good relationship with Logan's Furniture that was in this building here, and also Stoker and McDermott. And I used to, if I had customers that wanted to buy a TV, they would let me buy the TV from them, and then I'd sell it to the customer.
And that is kind of an interesting point that we should highlight, that where we're at 1301 East Spring Street right now used to be Logan's Furniture.
Yes.
And as most people remember, Logan's Furniture then moved out off of 703, and I think it's called Lifestyle Furniture now. So Logan's Furniture used to be here, and they sold new TVs, and then you would service and repair. But that wasn't the only store that you had contracts to do something similar, right?
Yeah. No, there was a Goodyear store in town here, and that's when we had the Goodyear factory. And any Goodyear employee could get 10% off of anything they bought at Goodyear store. And Goodyear store would charge accounts to the employees out at Goodyear. And so every TV that they would sell, you had to, when you delivered it, you just couldn't go in there and unbox it and hook it up. We had to set those TVs up. We had to demagnetize them, coil, we had to demagnetize them, we had to set the screen controls, we had to set the drive controls, because you had two controls for each one. You had a drive control and a screen control, and you had a red, blue, and a green for each gun in the picture tube. You had 3 guns in there. And so we had to go in there and set the TV up and everything like this for the customers. So every TV they would sell, I would set up. Then also, St. Mary's Appliance Center came in to started up. Larry Calamar used to be the tire manager at Goodyear store. Well, him and Gene Frankson started St. Mary's Appliance Center up there where Vogel's insurance was.
Oh, Nationwide Insurance, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
and they was in there. And then I used to set all their TVs up too. And I also did all their antenna work and anything that people needed, I took care of the service in. And they would pay me, what Goodyear would do, they would pay me and put it on the customer's account for the setup and everything.
Okay.
So they'd pay me so much for delivering the TV and set it up.
So every new TV sold, you knew that you were going to the house and setting it up and getting them ready to watch whatever shows they wanted to watch.
Yes, and that was a big part, got to be a big part of my business, you know.
Okay.
And back then, people only had one TV. I mean, you know.
And I wanted to ask that question. We'll just go ahead and jump to it right now. When you got started in the business and you were selling TVs, did you ever imagine there would be a day where customers would come back and say, I need a second TV for my house. I need a third TV. We need to put one in the basement. We need to put one in the bedroom. And then the kids need, did you ever dream in the 50s and 60s at some point in time in the future that families would have so many TVs in their house?
No, I never did believe that for a particular reason. We didn't have the credit cards back then like we do today. And as I say, people used to charge everything. In fact, when we first got married, we charged our groceries. Every week we'd go down, we'd pay that. We also would charge our gas at the gas station. When we got paid, we'd pay that. So people didn't have the credit available like they do today. And that's one of the things that I did start doing, was giving people credit out here. I went to the bank and talked to them, and they would give me a line of credit that I could borrow up to $250,000. And so I would borrow money and then give them the credit, you know. And that is one of the biggest things that really helped my business. As I say, even I hear today that I had some customers tell me that, in fact, her daughter even told me, she told her, you better not go anywhere else and buy a TV except from Richard Fowler. And she said, the reason why my mom told me that is when she was going to college, you give her credit to buy a TV and a stereo system. And she said, she told me I better not go anywhere else and buy the TV, you know.
Yep.
And I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know.
Well, you developed a lot of customer loyalty over the years, and that speaks volumes of you and your team that you assembled. I'm going to ask you one other question. Did you ever dream that a TV would hang from a wall?
No, never. I mean, everything was heavy then. I mean, you know, and as I say, I never dreamed anybody would ever. And that hasn't been in effect very long. I mean, you know, I would say within the last maybe 15 years, 10 to 15 years is all that people really started, you know. Then at first they started putting them above fireplaces. We also have people today that'll buy a stand and put the components on the stand and still hang a TV above the stand to get it up the height they like it.
Yeah, I can only imagine somebody coming to you in the 60s and saying, Rich, someday people are going to hang TVs on the wall. That had to be a foreign concept. We talked a little bit about you learning through trial and error, but there had to be some other people that came into your life that helped you develop the skill set needed to repair TVs. Can you talk about who some of those people were?
Yes, Homer Cook was a big part of my life. In 1968, after I wanted Magnavox to start with. So in 1967, I got in touch with a Magnavox rep that would sell Magnavox to dealers. And I went down to Perrysburg, Ohio, and I asked him, I said, I would like to take the Magnavox line on. And he said, well, he said, we have a dealer in New Knoxville, Ohio. He said, that's Homer Cook. He said, let me check with him, and if he don't care, I will let you take the Magnavox line on. And I told him, I said, well, forget it. I said, because if I was selling Magnavox and you come to me and ask me, I would tell you no. So then, when I left there, that was at Perrysburg, Ohio, I went down to Toledo. There was an Admiral rep down there, so I talked to him, and I took Admiral on. So I sold Admiral for probably maybe 2 years, and but I forgot about it. But we had won a trip by purchasing Admiral. We went to Puerto Rico.
Nice.
And and that's some of the things that they used to do then that they don't do today. We had like 3 or 4 reps, different reps that would call you on for different products. Today, we have nobody calling us, you know. And then in 1968, though, when I took Cook's TV over, that was different for me. And Homer came to me and talked to me. He said, Rich, he said, I want to go out of the TV business. He said, but I don't want to let the customers go that I've sold to. He said, I do want somebody to take care of them, and I think you would do a good job. And I said, Homer, I said, I'm pretty busy right now. And I said, I don't have no money. He said, Rich, you don't have to have any money. He said, I got my stuff, that the TVs I have in the store here and stuff is floor planned through the bank in New Knoxville. He said, and the only thing I expect of you to do is when you sell this TV, you go down there and pay that TV off. So I said, well, let me think it over. And I don't know much. I talked to Peg about it, but I did want to do it. So about a week later, I talked to Homer. And so he wrote a contract up just on a regular piece of paper, and he signed it and I signed it. In fact, I still have a copy of his vendor's license, and I got a copy of my vendor's license. But at first, I didn't want to make it Fowlers TV, because I still asked him if I could use the name of Cook's TV, and he said yes. So he let me use his name. But it's something that, it was such a big difference, because when I was in business in St. Mary's, everybody from St. Mary's would come, you know, and see you. Well, most people, but you didn't get the people from New Bremen, Minster, Fort Laramie, Anna. But I noticed when I had the business in New Knoxville, everybody, like Botkin, Sydney, Anna, you know, all these different towns would come over to Knoxville. So when I bought this building in '73, and we had the grand opening and everything in '74, but I kept that store open about 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure how long it was. But when I was here, people wanted me at Knoxville. When I was at Knoxville, people was here. So, but I didn't want to give the building up. So, because I figured that somebody else would go in there and start a TV up and then take all my customers. So I kept the building and we used it for storage. The telephone company owned the building, and I only paid $75 a month rent, so I kept it for storage.
Yeah, smart move. And because in my mind, it was an extremely competitive business, because when you look back at the business journals in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, there were a tremendous amount of TV retail stores in St. Mary's, and I would guess in Wapak and Saline as well. Can you talk a little bit about who your competitors were at the time?
I remember every one of them.
I bet you do.
One of them was Donneberg's TV.
Yep.
Joe had a real good business. And then, as I say, there was St. Mary's Appliance Center. There was Gottschalk's TV. There was Stoker McDermott's. It was right down the road from where you guys are at. And there was also Gottschalk's TV. But when I first went to work for Joe Donneberg, he was in where State Farm is now. And then he had moved across the street there where Granara's parking lot is.
Okay.
But I worked both places for him. And then when Joe did go out of town, well, he was also where on down west of your store yet, where Sherman Williams used to be. Joe had a store there.
Okay, yeah.
So then when Joe decided to leave, go out downtown, and what he did, he went out to Villanova where he lived, and he did TV work there. And so me and Bob Fritz was out of a job then. Bob Fritz did all the appliance work, and I did all the TV calls, and then Joe would work in the store and sell the TVs and repair anything I couldn't repair in the home. But Joe decided then to go out of business, so that's what made me decide. In fact, I was scared at first. I went to Crown Control, and I worked over there for about a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And then I decided, well, I'm going to try the TV business myself. So, and that's what I did.
And that's a very interesting and intriguing story to me. But first, let's get back to those competitors. And we still had Goodyear and Firestone that were selling new ones that you were servicing. Hall's TV,
yes.
Was that a competitor as well?
They were a Zenith dealer. Hall's TV, they were a Zenith dealer, and they was a very, very good dealer. In fact, all the competition I had was very, very good dealers. They were good to me. We worked together, you know, and it's something that, and Joe Donnerberg, I can't say anything bad. Joe is always good to me. In fact, after Joe got out of the TV business, he worked for me for about 5 years. In fact, when we opened his store up, Joe Donnerberg was working. In fact, the picture we got at the radio bar, Joe is sitting there.
Yeah.
Also, when I took the Knoxville store over, we had a Violet Schuster that worked for Homer. She was a secretary and would answer the phone and stuff. And then her husband, Harold Schuster, worked at Goodyear. And what they did, when I closed that store, they both come over here. And Harold would, after he would get off work sometime, he would call my accounts receivable and stuff for me. So they were both here for a long time too. They were both all real good people. Another person that I really looked up to was Irvin Logan, and that was one of Tom Logan's dad. He was good to me. And as I say, so many people have been good to me in St. Mary's here, and I just can't appreciate it enough.
Well, I think you've reciprocated that back pretty darn well, though, with the positive impact that you've put on St. Mary's and many, many people. Interestingly enough, we probably rattled off 8 competitors, somewhere in that ballpark. Yet today, only one TV business is still here in St. Mary's. What do you attribute that to?
The biggest thing is there's no profit in the TV sales anymore. And service has been hit real, real bad for a particular reason. This is a lot of throwaway market today.
Yep.
And people think it's a throwaway market. I don't feel that way. I feel if somebody spends $800, $900, $1,000, sometimes even $2,000 for a TV, they are still serviceable. But the problem is there's nobody that sends their people to school on education on repair and electronics today. And that is why all these other places have went out of them. I mean, there used to be in Salina and St. Walpock, same way, that people, there was a lot of good servicemen over there, but they just got out of the electronic business because there's no money in it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Tower installation.
Yes, towers.
You did that early on, and before cable TV, you had to have the antenna. That'd be somewhat of a dangerous job, did it not?
It was, because at first, before the towers were popular, you had to get the antenna way up in the air. And we had a lot of 2- and 3-story homes that we still had to put an antenna, and this was pipe then. So you'd crawl up on the roof, and you'd put about another 30 foot of pipe up on top of that roof. Then you had to put guy wires on it to hold the pipe up, because as I say, you put it on the peak of the roof. A lot of these roofs were slate roofs, and they were really, really bad, you know. But it's the idea is, then the towers did come into play, but they had a lot of tilt-over towers too. But you couldn't climb those. What they would do, they were about half the section, then you could let down, and then you could get to the antennas and work it. But they were hard to climb, and all the towers we would put up were double-bolted towers, where each section was 10 foot, and you'd have 2 bolts in each one. And then we would put mounts on them, and we'd mount them to the house. But as I say, we've done so much of that, you know. And then after the cable business come in, then the antenna work did slow down. But with cable going back up like it is again, a lot of people are going back to antennas.
What's old is new again.
Yes, it's.
Yeah. So you had to be glad, though, to maybe get out of the antenna business, being the risky occupation hazard that it was.
I didn't mind it, though.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that you made money on. You kept your employees busy. And the thing about it is, I've done a lot of the antenna work myself. You know, I would never ask any of my employees to do anything
Yep.
that I wouldn't do.
Yep.
You know, so but my children come involved too. Our boys, and even my
Eileen.
daughter.
Yes, she
And,
was secretary
yes.
for a while.
And like some of them's been 30, 40 years. And then my grandson now, Travis Kramer, he's been with me about 25 years. And Scott's, all my kids, when they was 10 years old, I mean, they went on a truck with service calls and health care and the tube caddies and stuff in. So,
And Scott's still on it.
yeah, and Scott
Still likes
makes all
doing the service calls. Yeah.
And, well, I don't know how well he likes it, but we need somebody to make service
Yep,
calls that
yep,
can fix
yep,
the TV
yep,
and
yep.
can mount the TVs and hang them, you know.
And you mentioned Travis being a grandchild that's involved in the business, and you also had another grandchild that wanted to be in the business, Jarrett Fowler.
Yes.
You want to speak a little bit about Jarrett at this time?
Yes, I definitely do. Jarrett, he used to go with me all the time. And his dad, when his dad was working for him, he did too. But when Jarrett was 14 years old, he got cancer. And he went down to, they checked him out a lot. He used to get a lot of headaches and stuff, but each time they would take him to the doctor and stuff, they couldn't find anything wrong with him. And then finally, Jarrett went on vacation with me and Peg. He went everywhere with us. I mean,
He told us we couldn't go unless we took him with us.
and school was out.
But we did.
Yep.
Yes, and so what we did the last time, we went to North Carolina. I had a brother live down there, and Jarrett had to go with us, so we had to wait till school got out and everything, and we took him down there with us. Well, we was going to go to Gatlinburg, and while I was down there, but Jarrett got sick down there again, and he laid at the foot of the bed about all the time, and we was down there probably about 4 days, and finally we ended up, we'd come back. Well, then when we come back that night, he got sick again in a car, and they took him out to Joint Township Hospital out here, and then they took him to Cleveland Clinic. And they found out then that he did have sinus cancer. It was up in his sinuses and stuff. And they would give him treatments and everything. And Jarrett did come through the treatments and everything. But then while he was in there, the tube that they was putting chemo and stuff in got infected. He also had he got 5 infections. And we used to go down. He was up there probably about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and we'd even go up there and stay at the McDonald house overnight. Yep. And but I can still remember today when we go down there that we would come home at night, and then the sun was so bright. About the time we'd leave, it was always in your eyes and stuff so bad. But one of the things I remember about Jarrett too, and we have a commercial that is made up of this, and Jarrett is standing in a truck. And when he's filming this, he's telling Scott, he said, one of these days, I'm going to be driving this big blue truck. You're not, Scott. And
Was it the red one or blue?
it was blue one. That was the blue one, yeah.
Blue one.
And in fact, I can still remember him saying, one of these days, you know.
Scott, you were telling me that Fowlers TV was just awarded the best place to buy electronics by the readers of the St. Mary's and the Wapakoneta newspapers for 7 years in a row. That is really an honor.
Yes, it is, and I'd like to thank everyone who voted for us and hope that they remember us in the future.
Well, these days I'm going to be driving this truck. Scott thinks he's so big.
So if you're looking for a new TV, car, or home stereo system, see the family at Fowlers TV in St. Mary's.
See you on TV.
We missed that. It was really hard on us.
Oh, I
because
can't even imagine.
We had so much confidence that he was going to buy this, beat it and everything. One of the other things too, there was another girl in town here that went to St. Mary's School, Graham girl. And
Samantha Graham?
Samantha Graham. And one of the things I remember with her is we had the 57 Chevy convertible, and she wanted to go for a ride. And me and Peg, we took her for a ride in it, and we have pictures of it and everything. And her mom said that she was so happy that we took her for a ride, you know. And then we'd done a couple other things for her. We had benefits and stuff for her. But she's another girl that didn't make it, you know. And it was hard to see young kids go like that.
Absolutely, and thank you for being so involved in helping people that had difficult times in their lives. I know my sister had a fire in '99, and I remember we were out at our house on 66, and there was a knock on the door, and you tracked them down, and there was a TV that you had in your hands because they had lost everything, and that was Christmas Eve fire. And you've just been involved in so many people's lives, you and Peg, and your family, and it's neat to see how there's still family involved yet today. I guess you always got to be ready for curveballs and hope that people's there to help you whenever possible. Before we take a break, I want to talk about a curveball. You mentioned it earlier. You go to work back at a factory at Crown. You make it a whole 3 weeks, and you decide, I'm quitting that job and I'm going to go all in the TV business. Before you answer that, Peg, what did you think when he told you that I'm no longer employed and I'm going to try to make this work?
Well, when he first started doing it, he did it in that little house, and we had a small kitchen table because our kitchen and front room was just one room across. And he made me go out, take the baby out, and get in the car with it and sit out there till he checked on that one TV so the tube didn't blow up.
So it was a safety precaution.
Yeah. And he had the door ready for him to run out, like if it started on fire or something. But
and it worked. So you had full faith and confidence that he could make the TV business
and
work.
I helped him carry in some of the TVs to put down in the basement to work on.
Yeah.
So
you've always been involved.
yeah, all the way through until they got to here in St. Mary's.
So what did you think was going to happen? I'm quitting my job and I'm just going all in into the TV business. Were you confident?
I was, but I was scared.
Sure.
One of the things, though, I think that I owe her a lot of gratitude because, as I say, she did go through a lot.
And I had babies to take care
Sure.
of at the same time at the house.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but
Well, I think they always say behind every good man is an even better woman.
One of the things,
I heard that.
yeah, one of the things I think that I feel that when you are in business, like I had the business and everything like this, everybody gives credit to the guy. And I've had this happen before. I have a sister that married, and they were my competition. They were in Minster, and she had married a Gudorf, and
Sure.
they had the TV business over there. And she often told me, they passed away about 2 years ago, but she always told me it made her so mad because she worked so hard. And they moved to Chicago. See, her dad had the TV business over there. Then Marion and my sister and her husband moved to Chicago. They went to college up there, and she would work and put him through college, you know, and then they had the children up there. Well, then he come back and took his dad's store over, but she said that nobody gave her credit. It was always, you know, like the Dave and stuff like this. And this is one of the things that I can't give her enough credit. I mean, you know, I know what she did, and I appreciate it. So
You guys have been a great team
I
since
had to stay home
1955.
during the daytime because the phone would ring and doorbells would be ringing. And
Yep.
so
Well,
I had to stay home.
Excellent. We're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break, and we're going to come back with this day in history, and it's going to be a particular day. In 1957, I think I went into the Evening Leader archives and pulled out March 18th, 1957, when this will broadcast. We'll be right back after this.
This segment of tonight's broadcast has been brought to you by Minster Bank, helping people achieve financial success in support of the Rider Nation and the St. Mary's community. The Evening Leader, chronicling the history of St. Mary's for over 100 years. And like a good neighbor, Lori Yelton, your local State Farm agent, is there.
This day in St. Mary's history, March 18, 1957. Klein Hen Stockyards advertises they will pay for all hogs weighing 180 to 220 pounds at a premium. Phone 6179 for further information. And I always find it interesting that you only had to dial the last 4 digits of a number. Today it's 10. School districts receive record foundation money. School districts throughout Ohio received a record $34,419,195.35 in school foundation money, according to State Auditor James A. Rhodes, who became governor twice for the state of Ohio. The bowling tournament schedules are announced. Neely Drug League, Tuesday, March 19, 6:30 p.m., has the following pairings. Woobenhorse versus AAA, alleys 1 and 2. The Surf Club versus Bruckens Cafe, alleys 3 and 4. Modern Paint versus Sport Shop, alleys 5 and 6. Loutz Service versus Pure Oil, alleys 7 and 8. And Moran Refrigeration versus Beatrice Foods, alleys 9 and 10. Dr. Elizabeth Kuffner announces she will not have office hours this coming Wednesday. Thank you to the following sponsors for helping to bring this day in history: Laura Yelton State Farm, Minster Bank, and the Evening Leader, as well as our sponsors, American Manufacturing Solutions and Plus One Professionals. Rich, is evidenced by the success you were having with TV sales from the Magnavox correspondences that we'll show on the TV here. 215 South Vine Street just becomes too small. You've got too much volume of sales that are occurring, and so it's time to open up a newer and bigger and better store, which is where we're seated right now. And August 1st, 1973, I think is when your current location opened up for you. There was an ad in a newspaper about that time that said, "Boy, are we happy. We have outgrown our old location in St. Mary's due to your confidence in our service and our product. So we are moving to our new location." Talk to us about that decision to move from Vine Street that you're at from 1960 to 1973 and open up this store.
Really, first thing when I did decide maybe to buy this building is I had intentions of using half the building and renting the other half out. So we did do that. Logan's Furniture had the whole building, but what we did, we put a wall through there, over there by where this, and broke it off. So that was one of my intentions of having the building and then having more room for myself. And but thinking back is like when I did have the Magnavox store down on Vine Street, all of our Magnavox reps and everything was just amazed of how much business we'd done off street on our Vine Street location. Yeah. In fact, in 1971, Magnavox decided, in fact, I have some figures from Homer Cook. When he took Magnavox on in 1965, how much purchases he did, and then what he did in 66 and 67. Then they had 68 on there, which half the year was Homer Cook's and the other half was mine. And then they had up to, I think, 70. And they couldn't believe how much the Magnavox purchases went up by dollar amount and everything, and all the trips they give us. Well, like we went to Hawaii, we went to Rome, then Magnavox sent all of us over there, and me and Peg. In fact, some of these trips, like to Hawaii, we had enough purchases for 4 of us to go. So 2 of our employees, the one that was with me over at Knoxville and her husband, they went with us. But we went to Italy. We had a lot of trips that they would give you on purchases, what you did, And the first year, in 1989, Magnavox was going to have a Dealer of the Year, Home Entertainment Center Award. And then Magnavox was fair traded also. You had a price that every dealer was supposed to honor by. So if a TV sold for $5.99, you was really not allowed to sell it for $5.90, or you could lose the franchise. And so we ended up, they had an HEC Dealer Award, and we had 4 states in our region. And there was Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Michigan. and all the reps was in that same division. But they give out a home entertainment center dealer award to one dealer, and then they give other, which I have records of who some of the other ones was. But me and Peg had the home entertainment center dealer of the year award, and we got a cruise for that, and we got belonged to different diamond pin clubs and stuff like that. But our RM could not believe the business that we did out of the Vine Street building.
Yeah.
And he told me, well, in fact, he sent me some different letters about reward one, then they wanted $250,000 at one thing. But one of the things that he did send me was a graph of all glaze counting, and also the penetration figures that we did on products. They just couldn't believe it. And when they would do sales training and everything, he told me that's all you hear is Fowler's this, Fowler's that. And they were trying to teach their reps how to get other dealers to be successful on the amount of volume we did, you know. But it was fun. I mean, it really was.
Yeah, you had a great ride, and so the store opens up in '73. You mentioned the $250,000 sales, which 1977 is when you eclipsed that $250,000 mark. Putting that into today's dollars was in excess of $1 million of volume that you had done in 1977. And this facility had to be a lot of the success. Now, obviously, Vine Street, you put a nice foundation together, but you've got a beautiful showroom, you've got the service trucks, you've got the radio bar that you put in, you had the big Magnavox sign, spelling Magnavox from top to bottom, which now says Fowlers TV. You had a lot of innovative ideas. Your trucks eventually become radio dispatch trucks, correct? I remember that from radio commercials.
Right. Yeah, because you didn't have the cell phones and stuff to use back then, you know. And as I say, we equipped, we had the receiver in here, you know, where we could talk, and the transmitter and stuff. And as I say, it was all radio equipped truck. So this way, we reached out to so many different towns. I mean, that was another amazing thing that, and we still do today. Like we was down in New Paris, Ohio the other day, the boys was down there. We'll go sometimes 40, 50 miles for service, you know. And even today, as I say, the word of mouth is still your best advertising.
But absolutely, and service is only as good as your servicemen.
Right.
And I saw something that in that same 1973 ad that you're saying that you've got 4 full-time servicemen with over 43 accumulated years of TV experience. So that's a big difference maker right there. And then with intrigue, I saw in a newspaper the Ohio Bureau of Employment Services presenting you and Norman Doulabon a certificate of completion that Norman had become involved in a program to get his skill sets in the electronic realm where it needed to be. And talk to us a little bit about that program and Norman.
Yes. Well, that program, what that was really put out for was to help unemployed people, especially servicemen. Norman Doulabon was in the service.
Okay.
So when he got out, they had a program available that an employer would hire these people and train them for the field that we was in. Then they would give you credits for that employee. So we did that, and I forget how many hours. I got in the paper and stuff like that, I got the pictures of it yet. I think it was 436 hours or something like that of training that we had to do before they would accept, and also they would check how he was trained. I mean, he had to be trained to be able to work for you.
Was the training here, or did you send him to school?
No, we trained him right here on service calls, and I trained him and stuff, and my son did. All the employees, I mean, we worked together. Used to be, we used to go to schools, like they would have, everything is done online today, but then it wasn't. We had to go to Chicago or Cincinnati or Cleveland for a training. And, and sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 days that you would go down for training on service, because electronics was really, really hard to service. We had so much different problems then as what we do today. Then I can remember not being able to make service calls on color sets during the day. I had to wait till maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock prime time to be able to go out and service
were-
that TV.
I'll be darned.
And what would happen, all the shows in daytime was black and white.
Yeah.
So when they'd come out, and we had color generators that you could put on there, but the color generators put out so much signal that, and it just give you a color bar pattern. And what would happen is when the show would come on, then you'd have color bars through the thing and everything, and you had to do the service that night. And I remember Jack Kuffner's boy, Kirk Kuffner. He's told me this story so many times, and he always said, Rich, I used to think you was the smartest man in St. Mary's. He said, you'd be bringing these two tube caddies in my house and fix my dad's TV. He said, I couldn't believe it. He said, you'd ticker around with it and do this to it and do that to it. And he said, turn it on, the picture would be there. He said, it was just amazed me, you know, to
Yeah.
see.
Me that one night out the bowling alley.
Yeah, so.
He said it really loud.
Yeah.
But it's something that in TVs today, I mean, back then, we had a lot of problems with TVs. I mean, you know, and they took a lot more service than what they did today.
Sometimes I think I remember hitting the side of the TV because that's all I knew how to do.
That worked.
Of our family TV. So you've got a great product, Magnavox. You've got great service, great business leader, and you've got this new facility. Something that I think people can reflect back on and maybe say, yeah, maybe I do remember that. This was only a one-story facility.
Yes. When I bought this building, see, it was one story, and but the leak roof, because this building sat empty for about a year between Logan's Furniture and us going in there, and all the ceiling tiles had fell out. There used to be a boiler in the parking lot, and then the pipes run from the boiler underneath this building. So when I bought it, we put a new boiler, a furnace heating system in there and everything, but the roof I had repaired, and we put, I don't know, I think $15,000, $20,000 in the roof, but it still leaked. We still had it leaking all the time. But the problem with this building was it was higher in the front than it was in the back. And this building is 112 foot long, but it always drained to the back. So what I decided, we would put a new story up on here, and I'd drain it to the side, and that was 64 foot, so it was about half the way the water would run, you know. And so we ended up, we put the other story on. But when I did put it up, again, I was thinking about making money. I thought, well, I'll make 2 apartments in front, and we got the door up there, but I never did put the stairway up there. And then I got the door, and when the back, I was going to have 2 apartments in the back. And then the center part here, I was going to have that for apartments. But all the windows and everything is up there, but I never did do it for a particular reason. I had some other rentals uptown, and there was business downstairs, and then the apartments was upstairs, and a lot of times they'd run water over and everything and get down in the business. And I thought, well, I just don't want to put up with that. So I never did make apartments on it, but we still use it for storage and stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Let's talk about how TVs have evolved. I know that we've got an old black and white television that we'll take a look at in a little bit, but how did TVs evolve from when you first got into the business to what your sons are selling today?
Like, this is a VHF tuner here, this front part, and we have 2 tubes for the VHF, and then this back tuner here is the UHF tuner. So this tuner here would go from 2 to 13, well, 14 really, and so you had strips in there, and there was little strips, but then the UHF, you can see where you would have a dial here, and they would, when you turn this, it would turn to get your UHF stations in from 14 to 83. And but this set was also called like, it wasn't in series. Like a lot of the cheaper sets they would make in series where the bulbs would wired in series like your old Christmas tree bulbs used to be. Where this one here, everything was separate. And if one tube went out, just that tube would go off. You know? And you had a strip for each channel. Like say if you wanted channel 2, you would turn it on 2, and these contacts here would make contacts at the bottom on another set of contacts, and what happened, these would get dirty and corroded, and when you'd go to channel 7, it wouldn't stay on, and you'd have to wiggle the tuner, and you'd have to work the contacts up underneath there. But I never seen any strips this small. Normally they was about another inch longer for the channels, and then you had coils under the back here for each one of these strips. So it's so different than what today's TV stations are, you know. Well, at first when I got into them, there's round tubes. They were all tube sets. You had 24,000 volts going to the picture tube, and you had the high voltage transformer in there, and you had a 6BK4 regulator tube in there that would keep that constant voltage at 24,000 volts. Well, if that regulator quit working, that thing could put out 30,000 volts. We had a voltmeter that you would check the voltage, and you always had to watch how you would unplug that, because even with the set off, it could be off 4 or 5 hours, and that tube would still hold charge. You get the devil shocked out of you, you know. But it's changed so much, and then, as I say, the shows from black and white, you know, to just prime time at night. Also, the size of the TVs, and as I say, all of them before was always round ones, like this one would be back there, the tube was round, and they stuck out probably 2 foot, the neck did, you know. And I can still remember when I was working for Donneberg, we did all the repairs in the basement, and I had the back off the TV, and I was carrying it downstairs, and I caught the neck of the tube on the stairway there and let all the gas out. But you had to watch back then, because if you hit that tube in the wrong place, the tube would explode. They were under a vacuum.
Okay.
And but the technology today and everything, and the size of them, I mean, it's just amazing, the parts that are integrated. Like, you have so many integrated circuits and ICs today and everything. And capacitors, I mean, the cans was 3-4 inches tall with a capacitor and stuff in them, you know. And then we had, the biggest thing is, back in those days, when you would go to service a TV, in that high voltage transformer, we had a tube in there, but it was always closed off and under metal, and you had to open the door up and to get that tube, because you'd get shocked real bad. That high voltage was coming from there to the picture tube, you know. But technology is just amazing today. I mean, I would never really believe, you know. The other thing that really amazes me today is the difference in where people are putting TVs at today. They are putting them in barns. I mean, they have family rooms in barns and stuff like that. They have them on the patios. You got outdoor TVs today. We've never had none of this.
Right.
You know, and outdoor TVs are really big today too. You know, people have them on their patios and outside. They leave them there. They're made to stay out there all year long, you know.
One thing that I think you really cornered the market on was promoting yourself. You had lots of commercials. You had the family involved, as we talked about before. Made great use of the newspapers, and you made great use of radio commercials as well. And quite frankly, you were everywhere. When you look back when you were involved in the Chamber of Commerce, you attended everything. You were having your picture taken with the rest of the group, opening up this business. A new person came in and opened up this business. Was that just the overall promotional aspect, was that a key ingredient to the success that you had?
I believe it was. And really, I tried to give back to the community what I received from the community. And I think that is important for any business. I think we need to support our schools, our education, and I've always tried to do that. And I think that was a big part of our success, is trying to support the community.
And that didn't go unnoticed. You were provided with the Friend of Education, and I think Phillips Consumer Electronics even recognized you for being recognized as a Friend of Education. And then we've got a note from Rhonda Shelby, who's informing you of being recognized as the Friend of Education. I know that junior high principal Earl Campbell had written a letter to you thanking you for the donation of an Odyssey video game. In the hospital, you had made contributions, and like you were just everywhere. Your presence was known, and as I said in the opening, TV's in St. Mary's synonymous with Rich Fowler, and you were recognized with the HEC award from the Great Lakes area. You've just had so many accolades and so well deserved. But one that I really want to talk about, and I think it's probably St. Mary's most prestigious award, is the builder of bridges. The Chamber of Commerce identifies a couple of individuals every year that have made a strong and lasting impact for the benefit of St. Mary's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And in 2009, you got that medal. What did that mean to you? And did you have any idea you were going to be recognized with that award?
No, I had no idea. I went to the banquet, but I had no idea whatsoever. And I'll tell you, Craig Noble was starting talking and everything about the award and everything. But I think my wife knew it, didn't you? I think my wife knew it, and my children, I think, might have knew it. But when he started out, where this kid come from Chicago and the business and everything, that's when it hit me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just marvelous. I mean, it was my night.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, I just was so proud to be nominated for that, because that was always an award that they give to people, and I never expected it. I really didn't.
That award is a big deal, and I can't think of anybody more deserving and worthy of it than you. And so glad that in 2009 that you were recognized for that. And like I said before, it sounds like a broken record now, you were just everywhere. And then when the Townsends and Calvin had the theater, they tried to do some neat activities downtown, and Dream Big was brought on, and I think that you were a sponsor and maybe a judge of that. And then they also had the West Central Ohio Queen Pageantry that you were involved in, and you met some special ladies during that time period as well.
Yes, I met 5 Miss Americas. Me and Peg have. They were up here. They visited with us. They associated with everybody that was there from St. Mary's. And as I say, I never ever thought I would even meet one Miss America. I never thought we would have one Miss America in St. Mary's, Ohio.
St. Mary's, right.
But to have 5 Miss Americas up here. And the thing that was really most intriguing to me, to meet the Miss Americas, is what they go through before they can become Miss America. Because you got all the other trials and stuff. You got, like, we have Miss West Central Ohio, then they go to Miss Ohio, then they go to Miss America, you know, and it's hard work.
Yes.
And but as I say, we have met 5 of them, and one of them was so instrumental of my grandson Jared that I was telling you about. In fact, on my Facebook page, his picture in Miss America is on my Facebook page. She had taken pictures of him. And see, when these Miss Americas come up here, they were so friendly, and they took pictures with all the young kids and stuff, like, and with the older people and the sponsors and stuff like that. But it is just so, and each time I look at this stuff, I mean, this is one of the most amazing things. When I tried to go through my life, there was stuff that I forgot even happened. And what really shocked me is just in this building right here. I remembered, like, Bob Salvi, when he rented this and had the auction house here. They had a flea market here. Then I remember Caning's Furniture Store. Then I remember Mass's Furniture Store. But there was about 3 other people that I had rented to in this building I forgot about, you know. And another thing I remember quite well is when cable started in town here. Don Schuler started a cable office up there on East Spring Street, and Mike Wiedock's wife, Barbara, she wasn't even married to him, and she worked there. I remember that. And Jerry Speckman worked up there, but cable was just getting started then. And Time Warner bought them out and everything, you know, but as I say, it's just amazing how the cable started in St. Mary's. I mean, you know, it's something. We had the office in town and everything. We had TVs in there. Anybody would go in there to pay their TV, had our TV in there with our advertising on. It was a way to advertise your business.
And you did that quite a bit. I remember seeing that little placard a lot of places. This TV donated by Fowler. Yeah, you were the master of marketing and promoting. But you realized at some point that it was going to be time that you needed to step back and allow the family business to continue with passing it on to your sons.
Yes.
Was that a difficult decision, or is it something that you knew you just needed to do?
No, I was ready to. And one of the things that I realized the older I got and the more I was involved with the business and everything, I think back about the things that I didn't do that I should have done with my family. And some of those things was like my one son, Scott, played football. I think it was in his sophomore year. I didn't get a chance to go to his games or anything like this, and I didn't get a chance to go anything of the school activities for your children and my children, stuff like this. I was always working. I was the first one here in the morning. I was the last one to leave, but I tried to make a success, and I had to. I mean, because as I say, when I came to St. Mary's, I was a poor boy. When all the time I went to school and everything, I mean, we had a large family. There was 12 kids in our families. Mom and Dad worked both, support us all the time, and it was hard, And but I wanted to be successful and make life decent for my children.
And that you did, and Mark and Scott are now running the business, and I think for 20 years that they've had the store. And we'll talk to them here in a second. And we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break. We're going to do word association and bring them in and finish up.
This segment of Rider Nation Station has been brought to you by Plus One Professionals Real Estate, selling St. Mary's from the corner of Spring and Chestnut since 1982. American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.
All righty, we're here with Mark and Scott Fowler, the youngest of Rich and Peggy's children, who took over the business about 20 years ago from their father, but you've worked for many years prior to being the owners as well. One of the things let's talk about is, what was it like working with your dad all of these years?
Yeah, well,
It's kind of a loaded question.
It's been easy. It's been good working with family and things like that. So I know every day after school, this is where we always had to come every day after school. A lot of our deliveries would get scheduled for late afternoon. So when the kids when we got off of school, we would come in and deliver TVs in the afternoon. So that was kind of our every day after school thing, that we would come to the store and work for him. So, but it's been good. I mean, there's worse jobs out there. So I believe it's been good.
And probably as youngsters, you guys were in the store learning whatever you could learn
The
about.
school bus would drop us off here.
Okay. So from Moulton School to here, and
Right to the truck. For me.
right to the truck. Nice. And Scott, that's really more of your focus is on the service end of the business.
Yeah, by far.
And what have you seen that's changed drastically in the business from when you first were tinkering on TVs to how they are now?
Parts that used to be that big are now that big. And you can't hardly, well, I can't hardly see them anymore, but I am getting older.
Yeah.
So
Is it simpler to work on other than the size of them, or?
I think it's more complicated because there's so much more involved in it rather than it being something that was simple. Now it's something that's, especially with smart TVs, all the software that's built in, which we didn't have before.
And how do you stay ahead of that curve of all the changes that come on the service end?
A lot of learning. It's interesting. It's hard to keep up with, but it's just an everyday thing.
And Mark, on the sales side, 20 years ago, the internet wasn't quite the impact on television sales as what you're dealing with now. How has that changed what you guys do in the business?
I think TVs were a lot easier back then, before the internet, but I do enjoy everything that they do nowadays. We do a lot of playing around with them in the store here, and a lot of our phone calls, and even a lot of times when our customers have a problem with something, that's how we learn new things, is we always want to help the customer out. So if a customer has a problem with something, we'll get on the TV here at the store and we'll figure it out for them. So we definitely want to make sure they're happy.
And I think probably the 1-2 punch that you guys have versus just having Amazon ship you something is you're going to provide them with that quality TV, and then you're going to service it if something does happen to go awry, then that's something that you're not getting out of an Amazon purchase.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big advantage that we have over a lot of them, because there's been times that we've spent, 20 minutes with somebody on the phone trying to help them over the phone. And I know a lot of our customers do appreciate that, because that's stuff that they cannot get other places, and Amazon and places like that are no help when it comes to anything like that. And even some of the box stores are no help, but I know a lot of our customers do appreciate that, so when we get done with them and they've fixed the problem they've had on their TV, they're very happy at that point.
So that's a niche that you guys have to continue to build on, and that all started in 1957 when your dad started taking a TV here and parts from this TV here and from here and seeing if he could make one work.
Sure.
So 1957 to 2020 and going strong. The torch has been passed from Rich and Peg to Mark and Scott, and thank you guys for being here, and best of luck to you. And it's always great to have a store be in business as long as what Fowler's has, and leaving their mark on our town and the surrounding areas. So thanks so much, and best of luck to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This segment of tonight's broadcast has been brought to you by Minster Bank, helping people achieve financial success in support of the Rider Nation and the St. Mary's community. The Evening Leader, chronicling the history of St. Mary's for over 100 years. And like a good neighbor, Lori Yelton, your local State Farm agent, is there.
Alrighty, so this is where I'm going to give you something that is relevant to St. Mary's, and I want you to just think of the first things that come to your mind and talk about it. So welcome back to Rider Nation Station Word Association, and thanks to our sponsors, Plus One Professionals, American Manufacturing Solutions, Lori Yelton State Farm, Minster Bank, the Evening Leader. Please stop into these fine folks, stay local the best that you can. Tell them thanks for supporting Rider Nation Station. Here's the first one, Baker Auto.
Okay, that was one of my first jobs before New Idea. Baker Auto, Tom Herhoser married Baker's daughter, and then they took over the business. But when I was about, I think maybe 15, 16, before I started New Idea, I did clean cars up there.
Okay.
That was my first
So that's
job. Yeah.
first memory there. Montgomery Ward.
Okay, I remember Montgomery Ward. It was up there by where Murphy's really had built after that. And I remember Montgomery Ward. I remember the bowling alley up there.
Yeah.
The bowling alley was up there, and then the bowling alley was next door after that, when the VFW, where the VFW is, before Marv Baer built that out there where it has now,
Well, you read my mind, because that was the next one, Varsity Lanes.
Varsity Lanes, I love it. I go out there. I bowl 2 nights a week. I bowl Monday night and Thursday night, and most people can't believe that I can bowl as many games as I can. And just this Saturday, they had singles and doubles out there, and I bowled. Me and my brother bowled in the singles and doubles, so we bowled 6 games there. And I went home, and I told Peg, I said, I'm a little tired. I said, I'm going to stay home tonight. So we decided we was going to stay home, and I got home probably about 4 o'clock, and I noticed on my cell phone, I fell asleep for about an hour and a half. And I woke up, and somebody was texting me, and some of the kids wanted to know if I was going to bowl at the bowling alley, because they wanted to bowl with me. And I texted them back and said, no, I bowl singles and doubles today. I'm going to stay home. And then my son called me, and he wanted to know if I was going bowling, because he goes out there sometimes. He takes 2 little great grandkids out there. And I told him no. Then I called Scott, and I said, Scott, I'm not going bowling tonight, because Scott always goes bowling with me on Saturday nights also. So I sat there, and then I felt bad. Everybody wanted to bowl, and I didn't. So I called Steve, and I texted the other ones back, and I told them we would bowl,
Said you're heading up there now. Yeah.
So we did. And I did.
Kids wanted him to come out so they could bowl with him by themselves, not older people by themselves.
Yes.
Rich is loved by all ages.
I've got a grandson. That's Travis' little boy. His name's Brody. He's 6 years old. He loves to bowl. And the other week ago Saturday we was out there, Mark and them was out there bowling with us, and there was we had 2 lanes and there was about 8 of us bowling, and Brody comes up to me and says, Grandpa, when are these guys going to quit so me and you can bowl together? So they said, well, Rich, we're going to go in the back room, and then when you guys get done bowling. So me and Brody bowled 3 more games, but we just put his name in there, and then he'd throw a ball and I'd throw a ball. But Brody told me, he says, Grandpa, he says, why don't you throw the first ball and I'll throw the second ball. I think I can pick them up better than you are, he said. So, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
I love bowling.
Last one. First things that popped to your mind, Smacko.
Smacko, that was a thing that I'm not really familiar with, and I know it's one of the things before Summerfest, I believe.
Out by the lake.
Out by the lake, yes. And I was never really involved much with the Smacko. But the Summerfest, we was big sponsors of that.
Yeah.
We was, but on the Smacko, I really was never much involved in that, you know.
All righty. Good job, Rich. That's our Rider Nation Station Ward Association. Thanks to those sponsors. And again, stop in, say hi, and stay local the best that you can. Tell them thanks for supporting Rider Nation Station. Well, we've come to the end of our show. It is our hope at Rider Nation Station this podcast did entertain, educate, enlighten, and elevate your perspective about St. Mary's, Ohio. We hope a story has been told that augments the development of relationships old and new to promote growth for all who do, did, and will call St. Mary's, Ohio home. Again, I want to thank Mr. Rich Fowler for sharing his story about Fowlers TV and his role as an influential community member. You have provided a significant impression on our town, past, present, and future. And for all those, past, present, and future, I say thank you for all that you have done for St. Mary's, Ohio. I hope you think positively about our town, the town we did not inherit from our ancestors, but the town we borrowed from our grandchildren. Peace to you, my fellow St. Marians, past, present, and future, always and always.
Thanks for watching another edition of Rider Nation Station, brought to you by Advanced Manufacturing Solutions, Plus One Professionals Real Estate, Laura Yelton State Farm Insurance, Minster Bank, The Evening Leader, and JT's Brew and Grill. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. It's free.